Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Sunday morning to everybody. Hope everybody is doing well, having a good one. Having some coffee, having some conversation. Why don't you join us? Let's chat. Today we're going to be talking about the challenges and how to be persistent in launching a business. I'm just going to make a quick pin here. Also curious to know what you guys are drinking this morning in terms of coffee. Hopefully nobody's drinking. That'd be a weird Sunday morning. Perhaps Saturday night. So today I have a confession. I actually am drinking a Keurig, which is like bottom of the barrel stuff for me. I was just kind of in a rush. Anyway, still okay. It's like Pete's Coffee's version. I don't know if you guys have ever had that before, but Keurig, not my favorite. Don't hate it. Not the best flavor. Not the best brew. It's got a burned kind of taste a little bit, but hey, if you're in a rush, you got to get going. You need a little bit of a kick. Keurig's not bad. I like a little bit of hazelnut in my Keurig just because it's so bitter. But nothing beats freshly roasted, ground coffee. If you can get a fresh bean in your area and grind that and drink that, that's the best thing. That's the best coffee. So anyway, today we wanted to talk about how to stay motivated when launching a business. And the reason why this is such an interesting topic of conversation in my mind is because I have represented as an attorney hundreds, if not at least probably about 1,000 entrepreneurs in my 11 years practicing as a commercial lawyer, and in various capacities. Some of them are e-commerce brands, some of them are brick and mortar traditional businesses, some of them are more recently, influencers and online brands. And there are some common themes that you can sort of learn and patterns you can see when you've been representing people over such a long period of time. And one of those patterns is sort of the qualities and the characteristics of people who are successful. People who, and specifically we're talking about people who are coming at a business proposition from ground zero. They're starting from the ground up. They don't have the capital, necessarily have the capital or the connections, right? And how do you stay motivated when you're doing something like that? How do you make sure you can kind of see the finish line? And the truth of the matter is, it's a set of skills. There's no one set of skills. There's no one determinative factor in being successful in business, particularly in e-commerce, particularly in today's competitive market where everybody's online. But I feel like there are a few essentials here. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what those essentials are. If you're watching this and you're a business owner, maybe you own a law firm, maybe you are looking to start, you want to have this conversation with me, join us. Drop your questions in the comments, or send a question request and happy to answer it. Or maybe you want to jump on live with me and you have something interesting to say. I'm happy to chat with you. Anyway, I think in no particular order, I think the first sort of important element of staying motivated when launching a business is to have a reason, a very good reason why you're starting. And I always tell this to entrepreneurs. Making money is not a good enough reason, right? Getting into business to make money. Everybody gets into business to make money. That's sort of a side effect of launching a business. But you don't stay motivated, meaning it doesn't keep you up at night to answer those emails or customer service problems, or in the case of a law firm, making sure things are running smoothly, making sure you can get the work, keep your clients happy. It doesn't work if you think about it. And I tell this to law students. I'm like, doing this for a paycheck is just insufficient. You got to have a deeper motivation. So I think one of the first things, although I said in no particular order, I do think it's one of the first priority items on your list is, why are you doing what you're doing? What's your reason? Do you want to make a better widget? Do you want to improve access to legal resources in a particular niche, which is one of the reasons I do what I do? It's an underserved marketplace. Why is it that you're behind the business that you're behind? If you can define that early, I think it will sort of breed success on its own. Why do I say that? If you are motivated enough to launch a business or stay in the business for the reasons that you've outlined, if you're not making money, which is most people when they're launching a business, they're putting money in, they're putting time in, they're putting sweat in. If you have a good underlying reason, that will keep you motivated, right? Think about that. Particularly in a business where it's not like you just sold a product, number one, and you made a profit on it. I mean, think about being a lawyer. I look back to when I launched my law firm, 11 years ago. And I was a solo practitioner right out of law school. Turned down job opportunities right out of law school to start my own law firm. And I think about what motivated me. And for me, I loved building things. I loved building a brand. I loved the idea of economic freedom. We'll talk about what that means as a business owner. And I love the idea of working with clients one-on-one in a niche, internet law, small business startups that I loved. I was passionate about that. That was, for me, the defining moment of why I wanted to launch my law firm. And what keeps me motivated today? What keeps me motivated today is to stay competitive, is to help as many people as I can across the country. Fortunately, with e-commerce issues, we can do that, or across the world. And that's one of my main reasons. So I would ask you, all of you, to sort of think about why am I doing this? Is it just to kind of, hey, there's demand in the market, let me see what it is? Maybe that's sufficient for you. But what do you do when demand slips? You get demotivated, right? Define that. Define what it is for you. It's different for everybody. And look, if money is your reason, I'm not saying it's the worst reason. We all have money up there on our list of reasons why we launch a business, why we do things commercially. But it shouldn't be the first reason. And I'll tell you why. How many people make money the first day, week, month, year of launching a business, right? The statistics are against you. 3/4 of businesses fail in the first 2 years. Those are the statistics. When you're launching online, today's market, it's even more competitive because I can find 20 different competitors by just going to Google, right? And for people who think, well, there's no real substitute in the marketplace, probably not true. The reality is that there are many people that are doing what you want to do. Maybe they're slightly different, but in the consumer's mind, product differentiation, service differentiation is easier than as an owner looking at it and saying, well, I'm different, right? And it's very hard if you're thinking in the back of your mind, well, I just want to make money right now. Fine. Side hustle perhaps. But what's your long-term trajectory in that business? Is it to build a brand? You can't build a brand if you're just worried about earning a coin today or tomorrow or the next year. You can't, because it's very competitive. Depending on what kind of business you're in, there's a cost structure, right? You have to scale your business if you're going to get to that level. And if you're not making the money that you wanted to make in that business, are you committed enough to stay in it? And anybody who knows an entrepreneur knows, and if you're an entrepreneur yourself, you know that it's a grind, right? You have to, like I said, you have to stay up late. You have to work for a while without getting paid, or whatever you get paid maybe goes back in, right? You're the last one on the list to get paid. You're not the first. And today's businesses with e-commerce companies and the way things are structured, it is a little easier in the sense that you don't need a staff of people anymore. You know, you can contract out a lot of your work. You can scale quickly. But staying motivated, you got to have your reasons set out. So I would say write those reasons out. Even if you've been in business for 10 years. I do this from time to time. I write out my whys. Why am I doing this? Why am I grueling over this particular client's matter, right? Why am I staying up late? Why am I with this client still? Why? You keep asking why, and you sort of get to an interesting point in your mind as to why you're doing things, right? It's an endless door, but eventually you hit a point and you get your reasoning. The other thing I notice with entrepreneurs is a certain amount of grit. certain amount of grit that entrepreneurs have that is really, really, really hard to find in other people, in other, if you want to call it, professions, right? Particularly, again, with e-commerce entrepreneurs. Grit. What do I mean by grit? There was a great book, and if you're listening to this live, just double check me on this. I believe it's Angela Duckworth, the author of a book called Grit. And grit, she defines it really well, right? Grit counts twice. It's effort. Entrepreneurs need to build this shell of effort around everything that they do. Everything is defined by grit. Why do successful entrepreneurs and motivated people have that grit? Again, you have your reasons why you're in business. It's different for everybody, but they will not stop at anything. They're so persistent, right? They're so willing to put the effort, the elbow grease in day after day after day after day. And that is a differentiating factor, man. I've met some entrepreneurs. I'm like, your hustle is unparalleled. It's unbelievable. To get up and do what you're doing every day, despite the obstacles. And what's interesting about grit is that you can be less intelligent, less talented, whatever that means, naturally talented. You can have less of a competitive advantage. And grit alone, meaning your ability to hustle, your ability to put in the effort, that can be your strong point. That can be your advantage, right? I hear this all the time in the practice of law. Hey, I'm not the smartest lawyer in the room, but I'll outwork you. You'll hear that. You've heard famous athletes say the same thing. Like, listen, I may not be may not have the number one trainer, or at least when I started, but I will box you, and I will win, right? And Conor McGregor is a great example of this. For those of you who are MMA fighters, the guy's got grit. If you listen to his early days, I think there's a Netflix documentary on this. It's very analogous to owning a business and being an entrepreneur. He was just trying to one-up himself. He had a vision. He was like, why am I doing this? He had his why. And he hustled 6 days a week. No sleep, right? Not literally no sleep, but you get my point. I mean, he's working out. He's in the gym. He's training. He's jogging. He's doing his thing that he needs to do to get to the next level. And he's showing grit every single step of the way. There wasn't a period of time, I don't think, where Conor McGregor, and especially in his early days, was kicking back with his feet up on the table, saying, I'm the best and I'm not going to work hard to get it. People who do that, I found in business, don't succeed. If you are happy with status quo, that's fine. But if you're happy with status quo and you're in early stages, you're in trouble. Why is that? Because conditions change. The economics change all the time in business. Competitors come into the marketplace. And so if you don't have the grit and you don't have the hustle to be able to push forward regardless of the circumstances, I think you're doing yourself an injustice. And you probably won't succeed in business, right? And so, again, once you get your why and you know why you're in business, I think the grit and the amount of effort you have to put in, it's one of those characteristics that's just so important to help you get through all those tough times, right? Again, entrepreneurs are not typically at an early stage making a paycheck. It's whatever you make after paying everybody, after satisfying everybody, that you get to keep if you're lucky. And that is not an immediate return. That's my point. And it takes a long time to get to that point where you're scaling. And I had a client just the other day. Listen, my product, it's held up. It's held up. What do I do? You got to keep going. You have a long-term brand. You got to answer those clients who are now knocking on your door, sending you angry emails saying, where's my product? You got to do what you need to do. So hence, again, my point of saying why money is typically not the answer for why you're doing the business that you're in. If you've ever seen the interviews with Dwayne Johnson, very motivational guy, and a very successful guy. But money was never his thing. He'll tell you he had $7 in his pocket at one point in his career, professional career. We're not talking about as a kid. And for him, it was, I've set this goal for myself and I want to be the best. And I want to work my ass off until I get there, right? So he had his why, he had his grit. The third thing I think that's common when launching a business, there was a comment here. I'm an entertainer, so it's so true. People with less talent will go further simply because they work harder. I'm telling you, man, I appreciate that comment by Carmen. You write, if you're a writer, you write every day. If you are an athlete, you play your game every day. You work your talent every day, right? If you're a lawyer, you got to be doing what makes you a better lawyer every day. Whatever it is that you're good at, great, improve it, do more of it. But whatever your weaknesses are in business, you got to improve that. And that's another point that I want to make. That's a common trait with all entrepreneurs. Nobody's a solo shop. We tend to think about entrepreneurs as, like this is one guy, he's the leader, one gal, she's the leader. These people are surrounded by mentors. I found almost across the board that every single entrepreneur has some sort of mentor or checks and balances system with somebody that they've worked with in the past, someone that they look up to, somebody that is where they want to be in a few years. They all have a sounding board, and a real sounding board, right? Not just a friend that tells them what they like and don't like. They have a real mentor, a person who can answer their questions and really guide them. Sometimes it's not even in their industry. And I find that really interesting. For some people, it's their parents. Or it's dad. Dad ran a business. He had a corner shop. I have an e-commerce store now. And my dad will give me advice on the pros and cons of how to deal with a customer in a harsh way versus being flexible. Just to give you an example, right? Mentors are extremely important because you need that 360-degree feedback. Am I right? If you wait to act on feedback as an entrepreneur until it's too late, you're losing customers. You're losing sleep. You're losing processes that you could be winning on. You're losing advantages. You need somebody to give you advice, detailed advice, and tough love. Somebody who will motivate you and sort of push you to get you where you need to be. It's very easy, again, in business, especially as a startup, it's very easy to get distracted. I call it trying to boil the ocean, which is another characteristic of people who are successful entrepreneurs. They're very focused. I want you to think about, again, if you're a lawyer, if you're an e-commerce professional, if whatever you are, a YouTuber, how focused are you in your objective? I can tell you with quite a bit of experience that when I was starting my law firm, staying focused was hard because you're wearing all these hats. You're trying to market, you're trying to find clients, right? You're trying to tell people what you're good at. You're also trying to do the work that you get. Okay? In order to do the work that you get, sometimes you have to put your nose in the books as an early stage lawyer. Think about that. So I'm studying this stuff all over again, like I was in law school. And so it's tough to do all three at the same time, but you have to do it. As an entrepreneur, it's no different. You got to have somebody who's doing your marketing, right? Doing the push marketing or pull marketing, whatever it is you do. Watching your customer reviews, perhaps making sure the email inbox is full of satisfied customers. Okay, you have somebody who's watching. If you have a physical product inventory, you have somebody who's watching, the level of demand that you have, making sure back orders are sufficient, making sure that things are flowing well. You have the face of the company, perhaps somebody who's actually out there talking to people, generating business or doing the marketing. And you're constantly doing. But there is a difference between being busy and being productive. And I found that every single entrepreneur that I know, they all think the same way, which is there's 24 hours in a day. Everybody gets the same 24 hours. Think about that for a second. Jeff Bezos, 24 hours a day. That's it. You can't sell, you can't produce, you can't manufacture more time. So for entrepreneurs, I think those who know how to use time effectively, time management skills, staying focused, being on the hustle, working like clockwork, those are skills you produce or you sharpen over time. But very, very common trait that I see among entrepreneurs. And I believe it's key to staying motivated, which is you realize, look, I can't do everything today. There's 24 hours. In these 24 hours, maybe I'll actually work 12. And of those 12 hours, maybe I'll be productive for 9, right? You have to kind of chop it up like that. If you try to do too much, like what I call, again, boiling the ocean, if you try to boil the ocean, you're not going to be successful and you're going to be very frustrated, right? So another common sort of characteristic that I see in entrepreneurs, that those who are motivated, particularly in the early stage of launching a business, is they're trying to solve a problem, whatever that problem is. And they're so passionate about solving that problem that they're constantly in the laboratory, if you will. They're constantly sort of tinkering with this problem, on the cusp of inventing or discovering or producing something to solve this problem. And they're constantly pivoting, right? So, as a business owner, if you are a business owner, and if you're aspiring to be a business owner and you don't know this yet, one of the key principles behind having a successful product or service is how well you can speak to the need in the marketplace, right? And when you're at the early stage and you don't know your marketplace perhaps yet, one of the ways to stay motivated is you actually, every sale or every instant of customer interest, you're sort of looking into that and you're picking it apart and you're figuring out, how can I make this better? What can I do for you, customer, to improve? And if you're not asking yourself that question, as a business owner, particularly as an early stage company, competitors are going to move in and do a better job. And I see this a lot in my web-based clients, particularly people that are in the software as a service marketplace, where you can get online and you can scale very, very quickly. If you're not paying attention to what your customers are saying, and you're not staying motivated to answer their questions and answer their problems, then you're not going to be in business for very long. It's just that simple. Another thing to think about, in a way to stay motivated in business, is look at your objectives as a short term, and long term. Why do I say short term and short term? Short term is like a week. What are we trying to do in a week? Are we trying to produce more content in a week? Are we trying to get better client acquisition? Break it down. And even if you can shrink it down to a day, like, what is my objective today? Every day has to be a step in the right direction. And it's very easy to get demotivated and say, well, I've had a rough year. 2020 was a rough year for a lot of people. For some people in some industries, it was a great year, but not for everybody. How do you stay motivated when it's a tough year? Tough year is a long time. Tough day can seem like a long time in business, right? And my answer to that is, what's your long-term objective? And match that up with your daily routine that will get you towards your objective, and break it down. Short term, that's why I say short term. Maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week objective. Then you have maybe a 6 month, and then you have your 1 year objective in business. And you stay motivated by tracking those metrics. Whether it's, and I say metrics, it doesn't have to be sales. It doesn't have to be how many customers you actually landed. It can be any metric. It's whatever metric you need to accomplish to take a step forward in business, right? So in our firm, we want to produce more interesting content. Not everything is going to be super sexy and amazing and generate a lot of inquiries or a lot of interaction. That's okay. My objective is to do more content, to get in front of you more. So what is my commitment to that? What do I do on a daily? What do I do on a weekly? What am I going to do? What does that look like at the end of the year? And even if it doesn't seem to be working, if I can track it, right? This is the important thing. If I can track the metrics, then I know I'm not guessing. It takes the guesswork out. Which takes me to another point, which is tracking progress. I think in order to stay motivated in business, you have to give yourself a pat on the back every now and then, right? It's sort of like this. For those of you who are fitness people or who are just breaking into the fitness game, maybe you are, you never lifted a weight in your life. In 2021, you're going to, you have an objective to lose 10 pounds or put 10 pounds of muscle on this year. Great. Or you should know as well as anybody else, that it's not just about going to the gym every day. It's about resting. It's about resting because that's when you actually grow. And it's not just about lifting weights. It's about eating correctly. And you have to reward yourself when you're doing those things. You can't just be, putting yourself under stress. I think your body is telling you directly that in order to grow, I have to rest. And the rest is sort of the reward, if you will, of working out. The side effect of working out is you look great. You have bulging biceps, or you have a great body, whatever it is that you start losing weight. But you have to take it in increments. You have to measure it, and you have to reward yourself. And that's very, very, very much the same in business. When you launch your business, you have to sort of revisit your whys. You have to revisit your metrics. And you have to sort of understand why you're doing what you're doing. And then you have to measure the growth. And then you have to give yourself the rest to reflect. And that's the problem with a lot of our, hustler type of entrepreneurs. And I've seen this personality, constantly hustling. But the successful guys want to stop and they want to reflect. And that's something that I've learned from them is, you know what, Raees, you have to stop every so frequently and you have to look back and say, this is what I did. Did I put a dent in my objective? Did I make another customer happy? Or did I annoy somebody? Did I lose money on this transaction? You have to sort of fine tune and tweak that. And you can't do that if you're constantly moving at a high rate of speed. Or if you are moving at a high rate of speed, you could miss things. I've talked to entrepreneurs who over in 2020, whatever product or service they were offering, they scaled very, very quickly, right? Home fitness is one example. People in the home fitness world, I've talked to numerous entrepreneurs that are selling either accessories or weights or gyms or some sort of fitness plan to work out from home, etc. These guys are scaling very, very quickly. The growth curves are just almost completely vertical. And I'm asking them, well, you're moving so quickly. How do you do it? And some of them are like, look, the demand is there, but every day we have to stop and look at what are we doing correctly or what can we do better. And that's one of the ways you stay motivated in business, which is even if it's not working well, or if it is working well, you have to look back and reflect so that you can improve. Hopefully that makes sense. I think something else that's a common characteristic with entrepreneurs that I see, particularly in the tech world, is you have to really study your competition. And perhaps not in an obsessive way, but it's great to stay motivated when you see that a company that's doing something similar to you had massive success, right? But it also may be motivational to you to see and learn why a company that does something similar to what you're doing had a massive failure. Why do I say that? Because it could create a gap in the marketplace where you can move in. The success we get of competitors, right? You can always, mimic your competitors, or you can understand what they're doing better than you in order to be successful. But to stay motivated, you have to get the sense that you're moving somewhere. You have to get the sense that you're on a track. And watching your competitors is actually a great way to do that. You can compare where you are relative to them. And again, I don't necessarily mean you focus on that as an entrepreneur starting a business. But I think it's certainly something that you need to study, something you need to be aware of. And if you don't do it that way, I think competitors can just eat you alive, right? And that would be counterproductive to being motivated and staying in launching a business and staying open. What else? Let me know if you have any questions as you're watching this, whether it's in the live or if you're watching this after the fact. Just drop your questions down. We'll try to get them answered. One of the things that I hear frequently from people is, well, I don't have the money to pump into my business. How can I stay motivated? I have a great idea. And my answer to that is, then find the money. Believe it or not, there is no shortage of capital. There's no shortage of capital. It's a question of getting in front of the right people sometimes. Or maybe you just need to work an alternative gig to make the money to put into your own business. And that's why I say, what motivates you? Think about the why you're doing what you're doing. Because when the money gets tight, if what you're doing is solely about money and the allure of success, it's not going to be enough to get you through the tough days. You might be waiting tables or driving Uber or selling, baseball cards from a garage that you flipped from a garage sale, or used shoes, right? You might be doing a side hustle just so you can have the money to buy more product, or, so you can hire somebody to help you in your business. That's somebody who's motivated because they know, look, I don't have the dough right now, so I'm going to do what it takes. I'm going to do what it takes to get there, to get where I need to be. And that's one of the most common traits I've seen with all entrepreneurs is they stop at nothing. And sometimes for the worse, sometimes if they're not doing things correctly, and as lawyers, our job is to counsel entrepreneurs to do things correctly in a less risky manner. And you can sort of see it in their eyes, like, well, I really don't want to pivot. I'm going to just keep doing this till I hit a wall. Maybe they hit a wall, and that's when they change how they're doing things. But I think the point is that, you have to evaluate what you're doing. And to stay motivated to get to your objective, you have to get the professional advice that you need. Because sometimes lawyers or business mentors, if you have them, you should have them, they can see it coming because they've seen it 100 times before, right? And so when they give you advice, you take it seriously. And I feel like more and more today, particularly younger generation entrepreneurs, right? I'm talking about people in their, late teens, early 20s. They don't talk to mentors soon enough. And when we look at those situations, unfortunately, sometimes they're failures. We say, you know what, you could have saved this business. You could have done so much better had you, talked to somebody who knew what they were doing, who could have, essentially saved you or sent you a client or done X, Y, Z. Anyway, I think when you talk to entrepreneurs over a period of, when you're working regularly with entrepreneurs for a period of, 5, 10, 15 years, you start noticing these things. And it's really interesting. Pattern recognition is one of the most amazing parts of the human mind, I think. Robots can do it. We can do it with a level of emotion intelligence that sometimes is more accurate than robots. You guys know the artificial intelligence pattern recognition thing. Are you a robot and you have to match up, like find the streetlights or find the car, right? Find the boat. Your brain is constantly doing that anyway. Your brain is constantly is wired to find patterns and to make analogies with things. And, I find that with most entrepreneurs, the single most important trait, I think, aside from all the things that we've talked about is this pattern recognition, where they understand where they need to pivot and where they need to put more elbow grease, where they need to invest, because they start seeing the patterns in their business. And there was a question, well, how do you know what the patterns are if you haven't been in business long enough? And that's where mentorship comes in, right? Everybody needs a mentor or 2 or 3. Every entrepreneur that I know that's successful, and recently had one who is in the process of making a 9-figure exit after being in business for 10 years. And, he said, look, there were periods of time where I was talking with everybody, competitors, friends and family, and I narrowed it down to a handful of people that I trusted. And it's good to have those people who may have skin in the game or may not have skin in the game in your business, who can give you independent advice, who can tell you, hey, this is what I think you need to do to get from point A to point B. Sometimes it's helpful if they have skin in the game, meaning they're investors in your business, or they have some sort of reason to be motivated in your success. And sometimes it's good for those people, for mentors, not to be motivated by your success, in the sense that the advice they give you has no upside to them. It's directly, simply advice that they believe is in your best interest. And this is common with lawyers, right? This is what we do. We don't always have a stake in our client's business in the sense that we're not owners, or we don't get equity most of the time, right? You charge a rate. Sometimes you have lawyers who have equity, but the point is you're conveying expertise to somebody who needs it based on your experience. And that is a significant factor in the success of most early stage companies. And by the way, when I say early stage, it could be 5 years in. It doesn't have to mean day one. It could mean 10 years in. Early stage really means the early stages of your business, of your market. It doesn't have a predefined scope of years. And I've seen entrepreneurs who have to pivot, who start from, maybe they're selling a product or service, and then they realize their strength is not selling the product or service, it's in internet marketing. And, they go hardcore on the internet marketing and they become an agency. That's how you discover those things, right? Is you're watching what's working, and then you are turning off the switches that don't work and removing them from the equation. And that's one of the ways to stay motivated is, you double down on the successes and you carve out what's not working. And that's easier said than done, because sometimes the things that are not working are still generating some money, right? There's still some level of success, and it's hard to stop and pull out and plug in something that will generate the revenue when you have to start from ground zero again on that, meaning that it's a pain point, right? You're selling a product, just to use a product example, the product is generating 50 cents of profit. It's generating something, so you start thinking, well, I just need a higher volume of sales, right? When in reality, you could be selling product B just as easily and just as much, and product B will give you $2 or $3 of profit. But in order to sell product B, you have to stop selling product A, or you have to market product B, or you have to stash product B, you have to change your sales channel. You have to get an expert to solve customer service issues. Those are the kinds of things that are not easy because it doesn't necessarily equate to a new dollar, but you still have to do it to be successful and to be committed to the long-term trajectory of your business. And I think when you have mentors or people on the outside who are looking at these things, those are the right people to run these things by. What else? What are some other questions? Somebody else had a question here that I missed. Let's see. How do you know if you're in the right space? That's a good question. I think that takes, I guess, what do you mean by the right space, right? There are people who started businesses in 2020. Let me just use an example. That they were not in that space, whatever that space is. Let's just use fitness as an example. Gyms closed, people locked up, people who love to stay fit, people who want to be healthy. They're motivated to stay healthy. They're going to figure out a way. I was one of those people. Luckily, I had stashed workout equipment already. Not everybody was so fortunate. But the point is, there are people who started selling weights and home fitness accessories. There are companies now who do this interactive, workout system where it's a screen and there's, some sort of instrumentality connected to the screen or with the bench. But my point is, people who are not otherwise in the business of fitness got into the business because of the demand, and they saw an opportunity because they started looking. Hey, I've never seen the shelves of Walmart empty. In the exercise section, I personally saw there were no weights when I went to the gym. How do you solve? So you start thinking, there's a problem here. There's a shortage of supply. How do I solve that problem? How do I plug in and build a resolution? And so even if you're not a fitness person or selling widgets online, you at least have this thought that there's a gap in the marketplace. Maybe I can try to fill that gap in the marketplace. And you start flipping gym equipment. For example, I just happened to pick this example. And then you go backwards. You say, well, I'm not finding enough product locally to flip, so maybe I need to go to China to get to the product or wherever it's coming from. And the people building businesses off this. So for that person who can then scale their business based on that need in the marketplace, maybe that is the right space for them. That's why I say it's hard to say what the right space is. But if you ask me, well, how do I know I'm in the right space? If you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're definitely in the wrong space. I'll say it that way. If you don't have a fire in you to resolve the issues that you see, to help the clients that you're helping, and to solve the problems that you're solving in business, then you're in the wrong space. So sometimes it's easier to tell when you're in the wrong space than when you're in the right space, particularly when it's not always about money. All entrepreneurs want to be rewarded. There's no entrepreneur that says, I'm just doing this for shits and giggles, as they say. Every entrepreneur wants to make a dent in something. And I think the money is a side effect of the hustle. And of course, if it's generating money, that means something's working, usually, and it's working well. And so you double down on that. But again, I've said this probably 3 or 4 times today, and it's a common theme. Most entrepreneurs are just not simply motivated by money. Simply. It is a good side effect. It is definitely, profitability is different than just being motivated by money. Understand what I'm saying? Meaning they didn't get into that industry just because they saw huge bucks. That's not enough, usually. It's not enough. You have to have some expertise. You have to bring something to the table where you can solve problems. Otherwise, you're just not going to scale. You're not going to solve enough problems. You're not going to make enough people happy to do it long term. And of course, you always meet these one-offs, right? People who are doing 10 different things. Those people exist as well, who maybe they're, weekend hustlers. They flip properties. Maybe they have a full-time job. They're also selling products online. They're also doing consulting. They're also doing XYZ. Fill in the gap. Okay, I get it. These are people who are just motivated to make more money. But notice the difference. They're doing 20 different things or 10 different things or 5 different things. And they're not convinced that they even know what they're passionate about. That's very different from somebody who started a very specific line of business, who's motivated to be the best in that business, who has a very acute problem that they're solving, and they're putting the resources together to solve that problem, right? And so, it's hard. I think back to some of my colleagues who've started lawyers, right? You can be a lawyer and an entrepreneur at the same time. There was a comment, hey, Sean, 100% passion is the key because entrepreneurship is hard. I couldn't agree with that more, right? We tend to have this vibe that entrepreneurship is a sexy thing. It became trendy to be an entrepreneur at some point. I don't know when, particularly e-commerce, which is my space. And I'll say that it's extremely, extremely, extremely hard. It is very hard to do something successfully over and over and over and over again. I'd like to use another sports analogy, and whoever's watching this who knows basketball better than I, which is probably most of you, correct me if I'm wrong, but LeBron James recently broke records with the most double-digit points consistency, like 1,000 games in a row where he shot double-digit points. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong. And I think, man, that level of consistency is really hard. If you could do that in entrepreneurship at whatever scale, at an equivalent scale, that's impressive, right? That's impressive. If you look at a business's reviews, and reviews aren't exactly, I'm in the review game as well. I get it. A lot of reviews might be manufactured, or the fake ones might be there, and so you're seeing a lot of bad reviews. But my point is, you see a business with consistent reviews and praise, they're doing something right? They're doing something correct, but consistently doing it correct. That is hard. And entrepreneurs who do that are driven by something by something that lights a passion in them. It's not simply about money, because you have to be doing this when the money's not there, or when you see the money come in, even if it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, guys, or millions of dollars. That money may not go to your pocket. It may go to pay suppliers. It may go to buy your next batch of inventory. It may go to pay employees, consultants, right? So we have this misunderstanding that, hey, just because I'm generating money, maybe I'm doing something correct here and I should just double down on it. Not necessarily, because that money may need to go to somebody else, may need to go to the IRS. And again, just to underscore that comment, and I think this is 100% sort of the theme. Passion is the key. Entrepreneurship is hard. Here was a comment. Yes, correct. He also became number 3 in triple doubles. You wrote triple, but I know you meant triple doubles. It's unbelievable. That guy is a high level performer. And again, I know it's not fair. I'm talking about one of the most successful athletes of our generation, LeBron James, but we can learn from him and apply his skill set and his mentality across any industry. What resources do you suggest to nourish entrepreneurship mentality? That is a great question. What resources do you suggest to nourish the entrepreneurship mentality? One of my personal favorites is to research or ask for recommendations on good books. And I have a confession. I don't remember the last time I sat down. It's probably been a couple of years where I sat down and read a book. But I use Audible to listen to topics that I think will be beneficial to me. And then I take notes. I actually have this composition book where I'll scribble some notes down. I'll hear something, I like it, I write it down, right? You guys don't believe me? Here it is, right? Here's some notes from some interesting books that I read, right? So Ray Dalio, Principles. Ray Dalio is the founder and CEO of one of the most successful private equity firms in the United States, or even in the world. And Ray Dalio has a set of principles that he likes to abide by. And they're principles that are developed after iterations and iterations, and he grabbed the rules, he created a set of rules, and he implemented them. So what I'm getting at is books and the advice of other people are a wonderful source of entrepreneurship, a wonderful resource to build an entrepreneur's mentality. Ray Dalio is one of my personal favorites. It looks like you know what book I'm talking about. One of my recent favorites was, what is it called? Atomic Habits by James Clear. I love Atomic Habits. I think I'm listening to it now for like the third time. Because I go back and, I'll grab little bits and pieces of what I heard. But this is why this is important. You might hear something that really digs into you. You're not necessarily listening to practice everything that these 20 different people said. Then you're going to be crazy and you're going to be lost. The point of the story is you don't know what will hit you in a way that really drives you and motivates you. You have to try. You have to be out there. You have to be thirsty to get that knowledge, right? And what I like about doing the audibles is you can get a variety like that. You can just get a variety of different things. You know, something motivational, something spiritual, something very business-wise, something that solves an acute question that you have. Like, for example, if you have a question on improving SEO, I don't know if there's an Audible on that, but I guarantee you there's 100,000 YouTube videos on this, right? Find an expert, you listen to the expert. One of the things that I love to do is, you know, listen to people on YouTube, you know, watch their videos and say, what is this person doing? How can I extrapolate from what they're doing? Again, it could be a completely unrelated industry, and save those resources. I actually have a Word document, or, you know, I have a channel private channel where I save, interesting and intriguing videos, but I also save articles that I read into Word documents, and bookmark them for later. And I kind of built a little pool of resources for myself. One of the suggestions, you literally just read that book. Yeah, I think it's, James Clear is an amazing guy. Everything he says is so on point. You know, the story is the British cycling class, it's, a team, etc. I want to suggest a masterclass. I recently signed up for a few, and they're helpful. Yeah, masterclasses are great. I think you just have to be careful with masterclasses. Some people are in the business of selling masterclasses. I hate to say it that way. And it's less substance. You can get a lot of great free stuff. But I agree. Paid mentorship, paid help is extremely important. I would be a hypocrite if I said it wasn't, because at the end of the day, I'm a paid professional. I get paid for my advice and for my work, right? So I think masterclasses can be a great way. Do your research. If you have recommendations, you can certainly drop them here. Having an ecosystem. Here's another resource. Build an ecosystem of people who you can rub shoulders with in today's virtual world. That means online. Join a LinkedIn group, join a Facebook group, join a private WhatsApp group. Clubhouse, I haven't actually played around with Clubhouse, although I've heard a lot of good things about it. Join a Clubhouse where you can actually rub shoulders and generate some friction with people who are either doing what you want to do or have some valuable skill that you want to acquire. For me, I love learning about marketing. I love learning about how people think, how the marketplace reacts to new things. So I'm constantly reading about these things, watching other people, talking to people who are doing something similar, doing a similar thing to solve a similar problem, even though they're in a totally different industry. And internet marketing is a great example, right? You can be a great internet marketer and you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be a widget person, you could be an e-commerce person. And so Clubhouse, yeah. So I had a commentator write Clubhouse. Clubhouse is just one of many, but in many respects, the application of Clubhouse indirectly exists already without Clubhouse, meaning you have these chat forums, but Clubhouse probably does it really well, and you can follow people. I'm not on there yet. I got an invite. I need to jump in, but you really got to rub shoulders with people, guys. I think staying motivated. I should get in there, Raees, and get on some panels. The info you're sharing is spot on. Awesome. I appreciate that. I appreciate that from somebody who's a solid entrepreneur. I will definitely get in there. I'll probably do that today. But I think somebody wrote a comment here too. Let's see. I like that you journal important takeaways from books. What are some of the personal development habits that have served you well? Yeah, great question. Great question. So one of the things that served me really well is this idea of, personal, 1% improvement. A 1% improvement every day. And if I can't do it on the daily, I'll do it on the weekly. So I'm playing with my hair because I don't know what I did with it. I put my hands in it and it was sticking out in weird directions. 1% improvement every day or every week. If I can't do it every day, it's every week. But consistency has become a huge, huge, huge part of my life. I guess it always has, but I've underscored it more. And so one of the important takeaways and development habits that I've implemented personally and that I preach even in my office is think about the 1% improvement over time. Because that compounding effect, you can't control the compounding effect. So you're either compounding a bad habit or you're compounding good habits. And personally, I'll give you one example of a habit. Getting focused in my day early. Whatever that is. Early, I don't necessarily mean like at 5 a.m. or at 9 o'clock, not a particular time, but I mean whenever I actually start my day whenever I'm actually hitting the road, staying super, super focused, like what are the 3 things I absolutely have to do, otherwise I'm getting my ass kicked, I implement those. And I've been doing this sort of reflection when I start every single day, and that's my sort of 1% improvement every day. For example, that's one thing I've been doing for the past couple of weeks as an implementation device to really kickstart my productivity. What other questions do you have? If you're still on, Alex, and you have a recommendation for a Clubhouse channel, let me know, or a panel. I don't know what they call them. But yeah, I've written down other, sort of things that help me stay motivated from reading, from reading all kinds of books and resources, and I revisit these things from time to time, right? Let's just pick a random one. Changing environments to gain inspiration, particularly if you have an impasse because you're unable to solve an issue. This is from the founder of Ethereum. I don't know where I read that. I think it was from Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss, where it's a series of interview-style little excerpts. And, these are things that I use. I wrote it down. I haven't looked back at this particular quote in a while. But this is what I'm saying. I would have never thought that I could learn something from the guy who invented Ethereum. Like, what could he possibly tell me that that would actually implement? Thanks, Sean. I appreciate you joining. Count each blessing that you're grateful for. Be specific. Being grateful helps in times of distress. I wrote down, the person who said that. I wrote down their name. I'm going to go read their blog. I'm going to go read. I think life in general is full of these inspirational pieces where people, I think, like the universe is pointing you in the right direction. It's up to you to actually grab those things and learn from them. Books are just an amazing way to do it. You don't have to read a book. You can read a blog. You can watch a 5-minute YouTube video on your lunch break. There's so many ways to build resources and to build sort of an ecosystem of staying motivated as a business owner. And I can't underscore this enough, is you've got to get out there and you've got to be like a sponge all the time. Every entrepreneur that I know is successful, again, this is coming from being a lawyer for entrepreneurs for over 11 years now. Every single entrepreneur that's successful never believed that they knew it all and never believed that they had it all. Every single one of them was out there trying to acquire new tools, new skill sets, new value adds. I've had entrepreneurs come to me and say, Raees, you're a value add to me because you know this industry really well. And I'm flattered, but that's a high expectation to meet. Now I have to perform at that level. And so I just want to underscore the fact that, look, entrepreneurship is hard as it is. These one-off unicorn stories that we hear about, they're rare. They're super, super rare. It could happen to you. It may never happen to you. But I think the bottom line is, if you're aspiring or you're already in the game and you're trying to stay and you're treading water, find the resources. We've talked about a few in today's live. A few ways to stay motivated. Staying motivated is everything, right? I am not a long distance runner, but I had a client who's, just as another anecdote for you, who's a long distance runner. And I asked her, I said, how do you do a 5K? How do you do a 5K race and compete with people? Like, doesn't that kind of weigh on you that, man, I just started this, I'm not even a quarter of a mile in, and you have to run your best and there's people running past you? And she said something that was really, really compelling. You know what her answer was? Her answer was, because I know that there's a finish line. I was like, boom. It's like a revelation. People who run long distance, games and courses, they know there's a finish line. They know that they're on this track. Every step that they're taking is going to get them, it's just get them towards the finish line. It's just a question of getting there faster. And that was mind blowing to me. And I thought, man, that's really like your entrepreneurial journey. There is a finish line. The finish line might be your business crashing and burning, or it might be a super uber success. We don't really know when you launch, but you know that there are many finish lines. And those are the objectives and the metrics we talked about that every entrepreneur needs to have. If you run a law firm, you have metrics. You just don't know it yet. I'm not just talking about billable hour. I'm talking about how many client problems did you solve? How many employees did you mentor? How many different issues did you resolve? How many hours did you build? That's one of them. How much revenue came in this month, right? How many new professional connections did you make? These are all metrics, right? It's all more. They're examples of less. How many bad habits did I drop? How many toxic people did I drop? How many, time-wasting things that I do in a day have I dropped? You can go the other way too. I think the short of the short is staying motivated in business. There's no one answer to that question. And I've talked to, again, I have personally counseled over 1,000 entrepreneurs, one-on-one. Either I'm doing something for them or they come to me for a consultation. And I've seen sort of in the aggregate, these characteristics of people, and just by pattern recognition, I haven't, written down a longitudinal study on this, but then I read about it and then I know, I'm totally right. I think I found this because other entrepreneurs or advisors are talking about the same skills. Anyway, I hope you thought today was valuable. If you're not watching it live and you're watching it recorded, send us a message and tell us what you thought. Tell us what topics you want. We do this every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I didn't talk too much about my coffee, but today it was just a lame Keurig. It wasn't that great. It was Pete's coffee, which is generally good, but the Keurig version it's bitter. I put a little too much hazelnut in it too, so it's like drinking a hazelnut milkshake. It's not good. Yeah. But I'm drinking it anyway. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, we'll talk to you guys. Have a good one.